The rain had turned the cobblestones into mirrors, reflecting the gas lamps in trembling gold as Georgiana Ashford descended from the hired carriage with neither footman nor maid to assist her. Her gloves were mended at the fingertips. Her traveling cloak, though well cut, bore the faint watermarks of multiple seasons. She paid the driver from a small purse that clinked with distressing lightness, then turned toward the narrow townhouse that had been her family's London residence before everything collapsed. It was let now, of course, to a cotton merchant's widow. Georgiana had come only to retrieve a single trunk of her mother's belongings that the new tenant had discovered in the attic and, with surprising courtesy, agreed to release. Her father would not have approved of her traveling alone from Hampshire for such a purpose, but her father had been dead for 11 months, and his approval had ceased to govern her life the moment his debts were revealed to exceed his estate by nearly £40,000. She was 29 years old. She had been beautiful once, in the way that meant something in ballrooms, dark-haired, fine-featured, with a fortune of £30,000 that made her beauty irrelevant. Now she was neither beautiful nor fortuned, merely a woman with good posture and an expensive education that qualified her for nothing except perhaps a position as a governess, which she had not yet been desperate enough to accept. The merchant's widow received her in a drawing room that had been repapered in an aggressive floral pattern. Mrs. Blackwood was kind in the particular way of those who have risen in the world and remember their own precarity. She offered tea. Georgiana accepted because refusing would have been graceless, though the cup rattled slightly against the saucer in her cold hands. "The trunk is quite heavy," Mrs. Blackwood said. "I've had my man bring it down to the entrance hall. I would offer to have it delivered, but—" "You needn't trouble yourself," Georgiana said quickly. "I'll arrange for its collection." With what funds, she had no idea, but one did not impose. She was standing in the entrance hall, considering the iron-banded trunk with a species of despair, when the front door opened and a man entered without knocking, shaking rain from his coat with the unself-conscious authority of someone who had never been denied entry anywhere. He stopped when he saw her. Georgiana stopped as well, recognition arriving like a cold shock. Julian Cartwright, the Duke of Ashridge, 34 years old, unmarried, in possession of estates in 4 counties and a reputation for intellectual arrogance that had made him simultaneously admired and disliked. She had met him exactly 4 times in her former life, always in settings where she was ornamental and he was occupied with conversations she could not join. He had never asked her to dance. She had never expected him to. "Miss Ashford," he said, and his voice carried that same quality of distant courtesy she remembered. "I was told I might find you here." She could not imagine by whom or why he should have been looking. "Your Grace." He glanced at the trunk, then at her. "You're alone." It was not quite a question. Georgiana felt the heat of humiliation rise in her throat, but she kept her voice level. "I am collecting property that belongs to me, in a hired carriage. I am not in a position to maintain my own conveyance." She had not meant to say it so bluntly, but exhaustion and cold had eroded her capacity for euphemism. He regarded her with an expression she could not interpret, not pity, which would have been unbearable, but something more evaluative. "I have a proposal to make," he said, "though perhaps not here. May I call on you tomorrow?" "I am staying at the Belmont Hotel," Georgiana said, because lying would have been pointless. The Belmont was respectable but modest, the sort of place where widows and spinsters of reduced circumstances took rooms by the week. "I do not receive callers." "Then perhaps you would consent to a drive in the park. 2 o'clock." It was not really a question. Georgiana felt a flicker of irritation cut through her fatigue. "I cannot imagine what business you might have with me, Your Grace." "Then you will have to indulge your imagination until tomorrow," he said. He gestured to a servant she had not noticed standing in the shadows. "Have this trunk delivered to the Belmont Hotel, room 12, before nightfall." "That is not necessary." But he had already turned toward the door, pausing only to add, 2 o'clock, Miss Ashford. I will bring a closed carriage." He was gone before she could refuse. He arrived precisely at 2, in a carriage so understated it might have belonged to a prosperous solicitor rather than a duke. Georgiana had dressed in her best day gown, gray wool with black trim, elegant in its austerity, and told herself that whatever this was, she would endure it with dignity and then return to the problem of how to survive the next 6 months. The Duke handed her into the carriage himself. Once the door closed and they were moving through the wet streets toward Hyde Park, he said. "I require a wife." Georgiana turned to stare at him. He was looking out the window, his profile sharp against the gray light. He had the kind of face that aged well, strong bones, deep-set eyes, a mouth that suggested either cruelty or restraint, depending on the angle. "I beg your pardon? I am under considerable pressure from my family to marry," he continued, as if discussing a matter of estate management. "My mother has presented me with a succession of suitable candidates, all of whom are either vapid, avaricious, or both. I need someone intelligent enough to manage a ducal household, indifferent enough to my personal affairs not to interfere with them, and sufficiently in need of security that she will not entertain romantic delusions about our arrangement." The sheer audacity of it left her briefly speechless. Then she said, "And you believe I fit these qualifications? I believe you are educated, capable, and in desperate circumstances. I can offer you financial security, social rehabilitation, and freedom to pursue your own interests, provided you fulfill the basic obligations of the position. In exchange, you will provide me with heirs and the appearance of domestic respectability." He said it as if he were offering her a clerkship. Georgiana felt something cold and furious unfurl in her chest. "No." He turned to look at her then, one eyebrow raised. "You refuse." "I refuse to be collected like a piece of furniture because I am convenient and cheap." "I did not say cheap. You implied it." She kept her voice steady, though her hands were clenched in her lap. "You chose me precisely because you believe my circumstances make me desperate enough to accept humiliation in exchange for survival. You are not wrong about my circumstances, Your Grace, but you are wrong about my price." "What is your price?" "I do not have one. I will not marry without respect, and you have just made it clear that you have none for me." Something shifted in his expression. Surprise, perhaps, or reassessment. The carriage had entered the park, rolling slowly along the Serpentine, where a few determined riders braved the drizzle. "I apologize," he said finally. "I have handled this badly. Yes, I am not accustomed to negotiation in personal matters." Clearly. He almost smiled. It transformed his face briefly into something younger, less austere. "Will you allow me to start again?" "You may try." He was silent for a moment, as if gathering his thoughts. When he spoke again, his voice had lost its transactional edge. "I do need to marry. That much is true. And I have found the process of selecting a wife according to the usual methods to be intolerable. Every woman I meet sees either my title or my fortune, and I cannot distinguish between genuine compatibility and skilled performance. You, Miss Ashford, have nothing to gain from performance. If you agreed to marry me, I would know it was a rational decision made by someone who understands the terms. That would be, I think, a more honest foundation than most marriages of our class enjoy." "Honest," Georgiana repeated. "You want honesty?" "Yes. Then I will be honest. You are offering me a transaction disguised as a marriage. You want my body for heirs, my labor for household management, and my dignity in exchange for money. That is not honesty. That is purchase, and I will not be bought, no matter how elegantly you phrase the offer." She expected anger. Instead, he looked at her with what might have been respect. "What would you require?" he asked quietly. "To consider it. I would require a husband who saw me as a person rather than a solution to a problem. I would require partnership, not employment. And I would require some evidence that you are capable of either before I risked my entire future on your word." The carriage completed its circuit and returned to the park gates. The Duke instructed his driver to take them back to the Belmont. When they arrived, he handed her down with the same careful courtesy as before. "Thank you for your candor, Miss Ashford," he said. "I will not trouble you again." She watched his carriage disappear into the traffic, feeling hollow and vindicated and utterly alone. 3 days passed. Georgiana spent them calculating her remaining funds and composing letters of inquiry to agencies that placed governesses. She had nearly convinced herself to accept a position in Scotland, remote, poorly paid, but immediate, when a package arrived at the hotel. It contained a book, not new, but carefully preserved, a first edition of Mary Wollstonecraft's A Vindication of the Rights of Woman. Tucked inside the front cover was a card in a bold, precise hand. "I have been thinking about what you said. You were right. Would you consider giving me an opportunity to prove I am educable? A." Below that, an invitation to a lecture at the Royal Institution the following evening, on the application of rational principles to social reform. The lecturer was a woman, a noted advocate for educational access. Georgiana held the book and the card for a long time. Then, against every dictate of self-protection, she wrote a brief reply. "I will attend. This proves nothing yet." He was waiting in the lobby of the Royal Institution, dressed simply and without the retinue she had half expected. When she arrived, he offered his arm with a diffidence that was entirely new. "Thank you for coming," he said. "I came for the lecture, not for you." "I know." They sat near the back. The lecture was sharp and compelling, arguing for women's access to scientific education with a precision that left the scattered hecklers in the audience looking foolish. Georgiana found herself leaning forward, absorbed. Beside her, the Duke was equally attentive, and when the speaker concluded with a call for institutional reform, he joined the applause without hesitation. Afterward, in the cold street outside, he said, "I should not have approached you as I did. I have spent too long thinking of marriage as a duty to be discharged efficiently. It did not occur to me that efficiency and respect might be incompatible. Why does it occur to you now? Because you made me see it." He looked at her directly. "I was wrong to reduce you to a set of qualifications. You were right to refuse. But I find I cannot stop thinking about what you said, about partnership, and seeing each other as people rather than roles. I would like to know if that is possible. Between us? Yes." Georgiana felt the treacherous flutter of hope and crushed it immediately. "You are asking me to trust that a man who saw me as a convenient solution 3 days ago has undergone a moral transformation in less than a week." "No," he said. "I am asking you to let me prove it over time. Not with proposals or grand gestures, but with attention and effort. I would like to know you, Miss Ashford. What you think, what you care about, what kind of life you want. And I would like you to know me, so that if I ask you again, if I earn the right to ask, you can answer from knowledge rather than desperation." It was, she realized, the first time anyone had offered her time. Time to choose, time to see clearly, time to be something other than cornered. "I am leaving London in a week," she said. "I cannot afford to stay longer." "Where are you going?" "Hampshire. I have a small cottage there. It was my mother's. May I write to you?" She hesitated, then nodded. "You may. I do not promise to answer. I would not expect you to." The first letter arrived a week after her return to Hampshire. It was not a love letter. It was a description of a debate he had witnessed in the House of Lords, written with dry wit and surprising anger about the dismissal of a proposal to expand public education. He asked her opinion on several points of policy, then added a postscript. "I am attempting to learn to ask rather than assume. Please tell me if I am failing." She answered briefly at first, then with increasing candor as his letters continued. He wrote about books he was reading, problems he was navigating on his estates, frustrations with the limitations of his position. He asked about her life, not prying, but genuinely curious. She found herself describing the cottage, the garden she was attempting to restore, her quiet days of reading and walking. He never mentioned marriage. He never asked for more than she offered. And slowly, across the careful distance of ink and paper, she began to see him as something other than a duke, a man who thought deeply, felt awkwardly, and was trying in his methodical way to become better than he had been. Spring turned to summer. In July, he asked if he might visit. She agreed, wary, but no longer hostile. He arrived without servants, driving himself in a small curricle. She received him in the cottage garden, where roses climbed a crumbling wall and lavender filled the air with its dusty sweetness. "It's beautiful here," he said, looking around with what seemed like genuine pleasure. "It's small. Small is not the same as insufficient." They walked together through the lanes beyond the cottage, talking as they had in letters, easily now, without the stiffness of their early encounters. He told her about a school he was funding in one of his estate villages, an experiment in universal education that was meeting resistance from traditionalists. She told him about a scandal in the village, a young woman who had borne a child out of wedlock and was being systematically shunned. "It's vicious," she said. "The father was a gentleman's son, but he suffered no consequences. She's lost her position, her reputation, everything." "What would you do?" he asked. "If you had the power to intervene?" "I would hire her, give her work that let her keep her child and her dignity, and I would make it clear that anyone who shunned her would answer to me." He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "If you married me, you would have that power." She stopped walking. "Is that why you came?" No, I came because I wanted to see you. But I am also aware that we have been corresponding for 4 months, and at some point, I need to know whether this, he gestured between them, has any future, or whether I am simply a distraction from your solitude. You're not a distraction. Then what am I? Georgiana looked at him, this proud, difficult man who had somehow become familiar. You're someone I have come to trust, against my better judgment. Is trust enough? I don't know. Is it enough for you? No, he said quietly. I want more than trust, but I will not ask for it until you're ready to give it. In September, a letter arrived that was different from the others. His mother was hosting a house party at the ducal estate in Derbyshire. He had declined the invitation 3 times, but she was now threatening to arrive in London and begin introducing him to prospective brides with renewed vigor. I have told her I am courting someone, he wrote. She does not believe me. I wonder if you would be willing to attend the house party as my guest. I will not pretend this is without risk. You will be scrutinized, possibly attacked, but you would also have the opportunity to see my family, my life, the context in which any marriage would exist. If after that, you still wish to continue our correspondence, I will know you have chosen with full knowledge. It was cleverly done, both warning and invitation, offering her the information she would need while making clear the cost of acquiring it. Georgiana sat in her garden with the letter in her lap, watching the September light turn gold on the hills, and made her decision. Ashridge Park was magnificent in the way of ducal estates, vast, ancient, beautiful enough to be oppressive. The Dowager Duchess received Georgiana in a drawing room that could have swallowed her cottage whole, examining her with eyes that missed nothing. Miss Ashford, she said, my son has spoken of you, has he? He tells me you are intelligent, independent, and entirely unsuitable. Georgiana felt her spine straighten. Then we agree on at least one point, Your Grace. The Dowager's mouth twitched. You have no fortune, no connections, and no prospect of providing either. What exactly do you imagine you have to offer my son? I imagine nothing. His Grace has asked for my companionship, which I have given on terms we both find acceptable. If you believe that insufficient, you are welcome to express your concerns to him directly. Oh, I have. He informed me that my opinion is noted and disregarded. The Dowager set down her teacup. That is new. Julian has always been dutiful to the point of self-sacrifice. If you have taught him to prioritize his own judgment over family expectation, you may be less unsuitable than I thought. The house party was excruciating. Georgiana was the only guest without title or fortune, and the other women made certain she knew it. They excluded her from conversations, assigned her the least desirable seat at dinner, and spoke about her in voices just loud enough to ensure she heard. The Duke noticed. On the 3rd day, he canceled a shooting party and instead invited Georgiana to walk with him through the estate's famous gardens. I'm sorry, he said when they were alone among the topiary. I did not anticipate they would be quite so vicious. I did. And yet you came. I needed to see this, Georgiana said. If I married you, this would be my life. These people, these expectations, this weight of scrutiny. I needed to know if I could bear it. Can you? She looked at the manicured perfection surrounding them, the evidence of centuries of wealth and power. I don't know, but I know I cannot bear being pitied or protected. If I am here as myself, not as your project or your rescue. I have never seen you as either, haven't you? Even a little? He considered that with his characteristic honesty, perhaps at first, when I was still thinking of marriage as a problem to be solved, but not now. Now I see you as someone whose judgment I trust more than my own, whose company I prefer to solitude, and whose absence leaves everything feeling slightly diminished. It was the closest he had come to a declaration. Georgiana felt her heart beating hard against her ribs. That is not nothing, she said quietly. No, but I do not know if it is enough. On the final night of the house party, there was a ball. Georgiana attended in a gown she had refashioned from one of her mother's, dark green silk that had been elegant 10 years ago and was merely presentable now. She stood at the edge of the ballroom, watching the couples move through the quadrille, feeling the full weight of her outsider status. The Duke appeared at her elbow. Will you dance with me? I am not dressed for it. I was not asking about your dress. He led her onto the floor, and for the duration of the dance, they moved together in silence. He was an excellent dancer, precise, assured, attentive to her movements. When the music ended, he did not release her hand immediately. I am going to ask you again, he said. Not now, but soon. I wanted you to know. Why tell me? So you have time to prepare your answer. The proposal came 2 weeks later, not in a letter, but in person. He arrived at her cottage on a cold October afternoon, and they walked together to the highest point of the surrounding hills, where the wind was sharp and the view extended for miles. I love you, he said without preamble. I do not know when it happened, somewhere between your first refusal and now, but I know that I want to spend my life with someone who challenges me, who sees me clearly, who makes me want to be better than I am. I know that I want partnership more than convenience and honesty more than peace. And I know that I want those things with you. Georgiana looked at him, this man who had begun as an arrogant proposal and become someone she could not imagine losing. I need to know, she said, that you see me. Not the woman you wish I was, not the duchess I might become, but who I actually am. Stubborn, difficult, scarred by circumstance. I need to know that you would choose me, even if I brought you nothing but myself. I would choose you especially then, he said, because yourself is all I have ever wanted. She reached for his hand, lacing her cold fingers through his. Then yes, I will marry you. Not because I need rescue, but because I want partnership. Not because I am desperate, but because I choose you. He kissed her there on the hilltop, with the wind pulling at their clothes and the whole of the autumn landscape spread below them. It was not graceful or romantic in the practiced way of novels, but it was real. Two people who had found each other slowly, through mistakes and honesty and time. They married in January of 1868 in the small parish church near her cottage. The dowager attended, and to Georgiana's surprise, wept. The wedding breakfast was modest, attended by neighbors rather than nobility, and the Duke seemed more at ease than she had ever seen him. Their wedding journey was not to the continent, but to the northern estates, where he introduced her to tenants and showed her the school he had built. She met the teachers, reviewed the curriculum, and suggested improvements that he implemented immediately. In the evenings, they sat together in the library of the estate house, reading or talking, or simply existing in companionable silence. He asked her opinion on matters of estate management and listened when she answered. She discovered that he was shy in private, uncertain how to express affection except through attention and action. She taught him slowly, with patience and occasional exasperation, that she would not break if he touched her, that vulnerability was not weakness, that marriage could be built on small intimacies as much as grand gestures. By spring, they had developed rhythms. She took over management of the estate households, implementing reforms that scandalized the older servants and delighted the younger ones. She hired the woman from her village, the one who had been shunned, as a housekeeper's assistant. When questioned, she made it clear that anyone who objected could seek employment elsewhere. He supported her publicly and privately, and slowly the staff began to understand that the new duchess was not to be dismissed or undermined. In May, they returned to London for the season. The same women who had been vicious at the house party now greeted her with forced civility. The Duke kept her close, made clear his devotion, and when anyone attempted to condescend to her, responded with a coldness that ended careers. One evening, at a musicale, a marquess's daughter, who had been particularly cruel during the house party, approached Georgiana with a smile that did not reach her eyes. "Your Grace," she said, "how unexpected to see you here. I had thought you preferred the country." "I prefer wherever my husband is," Georgiana replied evenly. "Though I confess I find London society somewhat exhausting. So much performance, so little substance." The woman's smile tightened. "Some of us were raised to it." "Yes," Georgiana said, "that must be limiting." The Duke appeared at her side, his hand coming to rest lightly at the small of her back. A small gesture, but one that communicated ownership and partnership in equal measure. "Darling," he said to Georgiana, ignoring the other woman entirely, "I believe they're about to begin. Shall we find our seats?" As they walked away, Georgiana felt a fierce joy that had nothing to do with social triumph and everything to do with being claimed by someone who had earned the right. By the following winter, she was carrying their first child. The Duke became absurdly protective, hovering and worrying until she threatened to ban him from her presence if he did not cease. "I am increasing, not dying," she told him one evening, when he had objected to her walking to the village. "I know that. Then stop treating me as though I am made of glass." He looked at her, and she saw the fear beneath his concern. "I cannot lose you. You won't. But you will drive me mad if you continue this way." "I will try," he said, "but I make no promises." Their daughter was born in March, healthy and loud, with her father's dark eyes and her mother's stubborn chin. The Duke held her with such careful reverence that Georgiana's throat tightened. "She's perfect," he said. "She's ours." 2 years after their marriage, they hosted their own house party at Ashridge Park. Georgiana had transformed the event, inviting not just aristocrats but scholars, reformers, artists, people of actual substance. The Dowager, now a regular visitor and unexpected ally, pronounced it the most interesting gathering she had attended in decades. On the final evening, Georgiana and her husband walked together through the gardens, where he had first told her he loved her. Their daughter was asleep in the nursery. The estate was full of guests who respected rather than tolerated them. The night was clear and cold. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked. "Choosing this life?" Georgiana considered the question seriously, as she considered everything. "Sometimes I regret that it had to be so hard, that I had to lose so much before I could find this. But I do not regret you. I do not regret us. Neither do I." They stood together in silence, two people who had learned each other slowly and built something real from honesty and time. It was not the romance of novels. There had been no instant passion, no sweeping declaration, no easy certainty. But it was partnership, chosen and sustained, and it was enough. More than enough. It was everything.